Today I'm talking to Benito Wainwright, an evolutionary biologist and butterfly expert talking to us today from England. He is going to tell us how kids can help butterflies.
Hi, Robert. Pleased to meet you.
Hello, Mr. Wainwright. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today in honor of Butterfly Education Awareness Day. Until I read this, I didn't even know that butterflies are pollinators, just like bees, and they taste with their feet. How cool. What do you think is the coolest thing about butterflies?
Oh, there's so many cool things about butterflies, Robert. Probably the most exciting thing that, takes me back to when I was little is just the life cycle. That process of seeing a caterpillar develop into a pupae and then into a glorious butterfly. I think that's probably what first captured my imagination about butterflies. And it's such a sort of magical process that scientists are still only just beginning to understand. I mean, I know about the process a little bit, and even I still find it really magical. And I think that's a really, really special thing about this area of science, because the more you know about a particular process, the more magical it feels in a way. So yeah, I'd probably go for the life cycle.
Why are lots of butterflies a sign of a healthy ecosystem?
Well, there are a few reasons for that, but probably the main reason is that butterflies are really important, what we call pollinators. So they help spread the genetic material of flowers from one flower to the other, and that enables the plants to reproduce. And we all know plants are very important to us, and they form the foundation for lots of really important ecosystems. So without butterflies, a lot of flowers or a lot of plants wouldn't be able to survive. Like we hear about bees and other pollinators doing a lot of hard work. That is very much true. I don't want to undermine the role of bees here, but butterflies are also very, very important. If you took them out of the ecosystem, then that would be a huge problem. And another role that they play is in forming the prey items for lots of predators. So in my garden at the moment, we have a pair of blue tits nesting in a nest box. And every couple of minutes, the parents are coming back with caterpillars to feed the chicks. So imagine if all those caterpillars disappeared, so all those chicks would go hungry, and all the various birds in the woodland wouldn't be able to survive. So they're a very important food resource as well.
Yeah. How long do butterflies live?
Now that's a very interesting question. It varies hugely. So some butterflies can only live for around 2 weeks in the wild, whereas others, in fact, there's a group of butterflies which people in my research group are studying at the moment, called heliconius butterflies, which can live potentially up to 12 months in the wild. And that's without any kind of winter dormancy or anything like that. They're fully active for those 12 months. So the reason why we see this kind of variation in lifespan is something that's really, really interesting, and something we don't really know why that's the case. So yeah, it varies hugely, basically.
Yeah. I haven't been seeing many butterflies in my garden though, because I have a lot of flowers in my garden, but not that many. I haven't been seeing any butterflies yet.
Right. I think one of the key tips I've got for you there is to be a little bit picky about which flowers you plant in your garden.
Maybe roses?
Roses could be okay, but the thing is, butterflies, if you ever have a good look at the head end of a butterfly, they have this curly structure called a proboscis, and it's really, really long. It's basically a really long straw, and they use that to dip into flowers and suck out the nectar that's right at the bottom of the flower. So for something with a proboscis which is so long, you kind of need a thin tubular flower for the proboscis to get right into. So things like roses have primarily evolved to attract creatures with quite a small proboscis, so something like a bee, for example. So different flowers are there to attract different pollinators. So if I want to attract butterflies to my garden, I'd probably choose something which has long tubular flowers, which produce a lot of nectar, something like a buddleia, also known as a butterfly bush. So
Yeah.
I think that would do the job quite nicely.
I have a bush in my near my front door that's really that has like a lot of bees that come to it, but I don't know why.
Nice. Well, yeah, I think there's a lot of partitioning going on here. So, and you've also got to remember that these insects are seeing in a completely different color spectrum to us. So they are able to see some colors that we can't. So some flowers which look really colorful to us may not look as colorful to a bee or a butterfly, and vice versa. So the flowers have evolved to kind of attract the insects rather than attract us. And the kind of way butterflies and bees perceive these flowers differs as well. So there's all sorts of factors going on.
How do they survive over the winter?
Well, a lot of them overwinter as caterpillars or as pupae, most commonly. But in temperate regions, like here in the UK, you get a lot of species that it's not really hibernation because their metabolism works in a quite different way to mammals, for example. But basically, it's a state of dormancy. So many butterflies will come in and overwinter in damp, sort of warmish spots like your garden shed or something, or your garage. And just stay there in a sort of what's called a winter torpor for the entire winter season, trying to expend as little energy as possible, because the aim is to stay in that state. So when spring arrives, they can spring into action and go about looking for mates and passing their genes on to the next generation. And yeah, they can overwinter in all different stages of the life cycle, basically, and it differs from species to species. So yeah, again, a lot of variation there.
Mom says she used to have a lot more butterflies when she was little, especially monarchs. We read they travel over 4,000 kilometers from Mexico to Canada each year. Why do they do this?
Yeah, the monarch butterfly, that's one of my favorite species of butterfly, probably one of the most famous species of butterfly as well, right? And I've been privileged enough to visit their overwintering grounds, which is kind of in central Mexico, and it's really one of the most impressive wildlife spectacles I've ever seen. Like every branch of the forest is totally covered in butterflies. It's like dripping with them. It's absolutely crazy. But yeah, basically why they're doing that is to overwinter. So the monarch butterfly will breed in Canada and kind of northern USA, and then make this epic migration downwards to central Mexico to spend the winter, because it would simply just be too cold for them up in the north. And they do that, they make the full migration all the way down to Mexico in one full journey as well. And the way they're able to do that is, again, something that we're still trying to work out. Like there's loads of different cues that the butterflies are using to make sure they're going in the right direction. Everything from the sun to the Earth's magnetic field and things like that. So yeah, another really interesting area which we don't know all the answers to yet.
Wouldn't it be too hot for them there? Because Mexico's probably the hottest part.
No, well, yeah, well, I guess the Canadian summer isn't too different from the Mexican winter. I think, in terms of temperature. I haven't actually gone and tested that myself. It seems to be okay for the butterflies. And also the forests, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think the forests in which they overwinter are at quite high altitude, so maybe just that little bit cooler for them. But yeah, some areas of Mexico are very, very hot. But the day that I went, I think I was wearing a fleece, so it couldn't have been that warm.
Those monarch populations have dropped by 99.9% in North America. We are losing 1.6% a year of 450 species. Butterfly populations dropped by 80% in Europe. What is happening to butterflies?
Really, really good question. Well, there are lots of factors involved. One thing which you hear time and time again, climate change, that's obviously a big factor, and also habitat destruction as well. Butterflies are a little bit annoying in the sense that they're quite fussy eaters, or at least their caterpillars are. Some species only feed on particular, what we call host plants. And if those host plants don't grow or they disappear from a certain area, and so will the butterflies. So in order to have the diversity of butterflies that we see today, we need the diversity of plants there as well. And often certain plants flower at different times. So if a plant was to flower at a different time to when the butterfly was around, then that butterfly, when it emerged, wouldn't have any food and therefore would starve. So all these different things. And yeah, climate change interacts with all of these factors. So yeah, a little bit worrying, but the more we understand, the more chance we have of trying to put things right again. So fingers crossed we're able to do that in the future.
What do you wish people knew more about butterflies?
Oh God, too many options here. Well, one thing, so I'm in a research group at the University of Bristol, which studies butterfly brains and behavior. So we're able to look at the intricate details of a butterfly brain, which I think is really, really cool, and see how they evolve in relation to the environments in which they live. So I could go on for ages about that actually, but so I study a particular group of butterflies which are found in Ecuador. So they're found, well, they're found from southern Mexico all the way down to southern Argentina actually. They're a group of butterflies called the Ithomini. They're also called glasswings. If you've ever been into a butterfly house before and seen butterflies with kind of transparent wings, that's probably a glasswing butterfly. And I've been studying those for the last 3 years as part of my PhD. And their natural history is just absolutely nuts. For a start, they're extremely diverse. There's loads, like in all of Latin America, there's around 400 species. That's like 5 times the amount of butterflies that we have here in the UK, which is crazy. And they have these really elaborate courtship routines. So all these butterflies are toxic. And because of that, a lot of the species have evolved these bright colors and patterns to basically say to predators, don't eat me, I'm poisonous, okay? But those toxins, which they acquire from the plants, the flowers in which they eat, also plays a role in their romantic lives as well. Because when a male is trying to attract a female, what it will do is it will present the female with a little gift, a little Valentine's present, if you like. And it's called a nuptial gift. And what that is, it's basically a little ball packed full of toxins and poisonous chemicals, which the female ingests. And therefore, it doesn't harm her in any way, but it makes her more toxic, which is obviously very good for her because it means she won't get eaten by the predators. And then she is then able to pass those toxins on to her eggs. So her children will then grow up and be toxic. So yeah, that's just one nice little story I've got. But yeah, you'll have to stop me, Robert, otherwise I'll be here all day.
What can kids do to bring more butterflies back?
Well, I think it all starts right at your doorstep, to be honest with you. So there are loads of things which you can do to attract butterflies to your garden. We've already spoken about flowers and choosing the right kind of flowers. Another tip I would have is to have make sure there's lots of sunlight in your garden, because what butterflies do is they like to sunbathe. They like to warm up in the heat of the day to basically fuel their metabolism. So make sure you've got pieces of that. I mean, I like to sunbathe as well. So, you know, if you make sure there's sun in your garden, that's probably good for you as well. And another thing is to take care of the caterpillars. So the adult butterflies and the caterpillars will feed on different plants. And often the caterpillars, again, I say, are a little bit fussier, and the plants which they feed on may not necessarily be as kind of visually appealing to us as some of the flowers. So stinging nettles in England are a brilliant place for caterpillars to thrive. So if you can leave a patch of your garden sort of untouched and a little bit wild, that may be really, really good for attracting the caterpillars in. And therefore, that will give you a lot of butterflies when they eventually pupate and then become beautiful butterflies.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining me today, Mr. Wainwright. You'd like to donate to Butterfly Conservation UK as a thank you for talking to us today. Can you tell us what they do?
Yeah, thank you very much. So Butterfly Conservation are a brilliant UK-based charity that do great things for improving the populations and the just general conservation of both butterflies and moths. We haven't spoken that much about moths today, but moths are very important and cool too across the country. And they're involved in all sorts of really interesting citizen science projects as well, like the Big Butterfly Count, where people go out and monitor the butterflies which they see on their local patch, and then that feeds into this really huge data set which will hopefully help us make, you know, our towns and cities or the whole country more hospitable for butterflies, and that in turn has really important knock-on effects to the entire ecosystem and might even end up helping humans too. So it's a win-win, really.
Click the link below to donate to Butterfly Conservation, and remember, together kids can save the world. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. It's a pleasure.